Good evening, everyone. Dr. J here of from the command line as we do our study and chill CISSP edition, our weekly live series made possible by Pocket Prep as we do 1 hour of studying, utilizing Pocket Prep's uh, question question bank. Sorry, and as we prepare ourselves to take the CISSP exam. So we do 30 questions within an hour. And like I said, let's get ourselves ready. If you haven't noticed, the New York Knicks are NBA champions. I've been, my sleep, I'm not going to lie, has been completely off. Just watching all the games and, just being really excited. I'm actually looking forward to going to the parade this week. So out in New York. So, um, I've been a lifelong Knicks fan. Endured all the ridicule and everything like that, being a Knicks fan. But the day is finally here that we're on top, and it really feels good. It's really satisfying, honestly. So, um, very happy uh, right now. And but yeah, so let's get to it. Uh, Let me share my screen, and we'll get started. All right. Let me change the layout. All right, I think that works. Clean this up. All right, cool. All right. Question one. Which of the following authentication protocols protects the transmission of credentials by hashing the credentials and using a challenge response that is resistant to replay attacks? Protects the transmission credentials by hashing. I'm looking at Delta. Yeah. So yeah, using a challenge response. Is it? Yeah, I believe this is going to be Delta. Yeah. So CHAP is one of the authentication protocols used over uh, point-to-point protocol links. CHAP hashes usernames and passwords to prevent them from being transmitted in clear text. It performs authentication using a challenge response that is resistant to replay attacks. All right, a document that describes in detail the encryption requirements for a data set is best called what? All right, if it's going to be in detail, uh, so guideline is no. That describes in detail the encryption requirements. Procedure would be no because procedure is like you follow like a step by step, almost like an instruction set. Um, so I don't think it would be that. So it's not going to be procedure. Policy is close. The encryption requirements for a data set. The encryption. I don't believe it's going to be standard. Ugh, I'm going to be so mad if I get this wrong. Um, Document describes. All right, let me hurry up and make a selection. This is taking too long. All right, I'm down between guideline and policy. Christian requirements for a data set. I don't think it's gonna be policy. The encryption requirement. Actually, it might be standard. All right, I'm gonna go with it. Yep. Yeah, because guideline definitely didn't make sense to me. Policy was no. Yeah, standard documents in detail the security requirements for a subset of technology. Standards are generally referenced by and enforced in a separate security policy. Policies are high level documents, right? Yeah, so that's why I went off of policy. Documents that align security objectives with business objectives. Guidelines are recommended actions or behaviors if a standard does not apply. Procedures are step by step instructions to accomplish a task. All right, which of the following is not a common type of data loss prevention solution? Which of the following is not a common type of data loss prevention solution? Okay, so you have, oops. Yeah, so network is one, edge, it had to be cloud because network, endpoint. Okay, endpoint would be like your, yeah, your user PCs, network. Yeah, you're gonna prevent it on the network. Then also you're gonna prevent it on the actual end user devices like PCs, laptops, mobile devices. So you could take out, eliminate Alpha and Bravo. Edge would, uh, believe that would fall under with Bravo. I'll go with Charlie. Uh, all right, so DLP solutions can be network, endpoint, or cloud, not edge. I thought edge would fall under like with endpoints. So they attempt to block sensitive data from being exfiltrated from an organization's systems. They can use data labels or look for patterns associated with certain types of sensitive data. DLP systems come in three types, so that's network, endpoint, and cloud. All right. All right. Wendy deleted all the old customer files from her drive since she no longer needed the data. To her surprise, the following year, the data showed up on a report generated by special drive scanning software. What is the most likely cause? Uh, this sounds like data remnants. Yeah. Yeah, that's residual data that's left over. All right, an organization has been using state of the art software for automation in its warehouse, designed in 1992 by Maple Leaf Industries. This state of the art software has guided the organization through a major portion of its history. In fact, this software is the backbone of their infrastructure and would seriously damage the organization if it were no longer available or able to be processed and reformed for updates. Maple Leaf Industries has recently experienced serious financial issues and has decided to make its proprietary software available to customers if it financially collapses and can no longer operate. What can Maple Leaf Industries put in place to protect the source code until these requirements and conditions are met? had to say Bravo. Company will no. I don't even think Delta is a real thing. I don't think you're gonna do alpha static and dynamic testing. 'Cause if you're trying to protect the code, that's I think I'll do Bravo. Ah, software I did think about that though. Software escrow process when a third party maintains the source code in the event a customer needs it. When a vendor or company initially developed the code no longer exists. So it's code repository. So code repositories are similar, but are concerned with holding the code in an air gap network for the purposes of protection. Code repositories aren't directly concerned with passing on code. Excuse me, passing on code or providing it in escrow in the event the creator goes out of business. Okay, that was close. All right, Charlie is a security manager for a data center. He has been asked to install a security system that will alarm if it detects a change in the sensor's electromagnetic field. Of the following types of intrusion detection systems, which will Charlie most likely use? Oh man. So magnets, electromagnetic. Hmm, I want to say Charlie. Yes. Yeah, capacitance intrusion detection system detects changes in an electromagnetic field around a sensor. So when a person walks into the field, it disturbs the field's electromagnetic properties and will set off the alarm. All right, what type of cyber threat is best described as thousands of individual computers used together to attack a target? That's going to be a botnet. Harina is closed. Harina is when you're trying to learn, when you have a network, an intentionally designed uh, flawed network to lure an attacker to learn um, their methods and tactics, so that way you could best um, harden your defenses against those type of attacks. Um, so yeah, honey nut network instead to distract a bad actor. Um, and botnets may have thousands or even millions of computers that give the attacker the ability to control them. So a computer that's part of the botnet is called a zombie or bot. Data transmissions between the bot herder and the individual zombies are called command and control traffic. Botnets can be used in distributed denial of service attacks or brute force attacks. All right, the CISO of a large company has been informed that the firm Stealthy Security Suites and Beats will be conducting a security audit on behalf of KBMG at the end of the month. Prior to the audit, the CISO instructs a cybersecurity analyst within their large company to conduct a preliminary audit. What type of audit is most likely to occur first in this scenario? So if you're gonna do a preliminary audit, um, so CISO of a large company informed at the firm. So you already have an external company that's gonna perform the security audit. So now the CISO is instructing a security analyst within his company to conduct a preliminary audit. I had to say internal because if they're already gonna do a third party audit, Why would you do another third party audit as a preliminary? I'm gonna go with internal. Yeah. Yeah, internal audits are conducted by a company, most notably before an official audit. It's a good way to prepare for the real audit and ensure any potential issues are remediated beforehand. Yeah, 'cause yeah, that I don't understand why would you do two why would you do two third party audits, and also that's gonna be money too. So why would you prep for a third party with another third party? All right, which software development model is the most popular today and allows developers to move back and forth between processes as needed? Choose the most specific answer. Oh, to move back and forth as needed, that should be agile. Model allows developers to jump from one process to another, editing as they desire based on customer needs. This is most popular today because it meets the needs of businesses and customers, allowing maximum benefit for both involved parties. All right, Gaffnet has been accessing the locking mechanism options from that she could choose from to protect some printouts, a laptop, and a thumb drive when a user is away from their desk. One of the choices she is looking at is a secure container that is protected by a dial with numbers on it. What is she considering? Oh, that should be combination lock because it has a dial. A keypad, yeah, don't get confused by that because it's the keypad is not going to have a dial on it. It'll have numbers, you know, buttons, but it's not going to have a dial. A combination would have that. Yeah. Combination lock uses numbered tumblers and dials that must be turned clockwise and counterclockwise to preset numbers to open the device. All right, according to the access control definition, what best defines an object? So you have subject, and an object. Object, I believe that's going to be a passive. Eesh. I think that's going to be a passive entity. Yeah. Yeah, by most definitions, an object is a passive entity that an active subject accesses. Examples include databases, computers, programs, processes, scripts, and storage media. An object is not automated and has to be manipulated by a subject. Which of the following should be performed before outsourcing or offshoring sensitive data? Uh, all right. Yeah. What should be before? Oh, okay. I would. Uh, I'm looking right at alpha, a risk analysis. Yeah, I think that would be the first thing I do. Yeah. Yeah, risk analysis should be performed before outsourcing or offshoring sensitive data. The analysis is performed to ensure that the offshore or outsourced party is storing the transfer data safely and securely. It must be determined if outsourcing the data creates a greater risk than the organization's risk appetite. All right, so regardless of the access control model used, what is the first step in granting access? I think it's going to be identification. Yeah, I think you have to identify yourself and then authenticate. Yeah, I think this is going to be identification. Yeah. All right. And so, in order for any security system to operate, it must first identify the subject. Systems must perform identification, authentication, authorization, and accountability. These are the four elements of IEEE service. Identification is when a user asserts their identity using their ID, username, email, or personal number. All right, a man trap is best described as what type of control? Um, yeah, I don't think it's not detective. I would say alpha is a physical control, a preventive physical control. Yeah, preventive controls are used to thwart or stop unwanted, unauthorized activity from occurring. They're designed to keep errors or irregularities from happening. Fences, locks, and man traps are all examples of physical preventive access controls or deterrent controls. All right. Juanita is a database administrator and has been advised that errors have been detected. Her job is to resolve the referential integrity errors. Of the following, what is the most essential to ensure referential integrity? Ooh. Um, a foreign key is equal to the valid primary key of the same table. Um, if you're using referential integrity, uh, I don't think it has to be the same table. Excuse me. I'm leaning towards Bravo. Foreign key is equal to a valid primary key of a parent table. Yeah. In relational databases, referential integrity requires that the foreign key be equal to a valid primary key of a different table. A foreign key is a value that references the primary key of a tuple or record in a different table. The primary key is the unique value for each tuple or record in a table that uniquely identifies that tuple or record. There can be no tuples with duplicate primary keys. All right, a data breach at which data classification level in a non-governmental organization would likely cause the most irre- irreversible damage. Excuse me. Um, the most irreversible damage. Uh, I think it's confidential. Yeah, almost got almost got me with private. I think I've got burned by that before. But confidential is the highest. Maybe to equal government would be top secret. Um, yeah, confidential information includes trade secret, source code, information that keeps the organization competitive. All right, Acme Incorporated is beginning to design a disaster recovery strategy for its on-premises data center. The company has a limited budget and is willing to accept some downtime during a recovery situation. The CFO and CEO agree that setting up a basic recovery site that Acme Inc. Controls with as little upfront investment as practical. I'm sorry, let me read this again. Acme Incorporated controls with as little upfront investment as practical is the business requirement. What type of recovery site do you recommend? All right, so okay, so yeah, you don't want to invest much money at all. So I'd say you would do a cold site. Yeah, because cold site doesn't have anything. All right, which of the following software development methodologies was created first? The first? I don't know. Uh, maybe Spiral. I want to say between Spiral and Waterfall. Jeez, I don't remember which one was first, man. All right. Yeah, I knew I had between those two. So Waterfall developed by Winston Royce in 1970. The waterfall model reviews a system's development lifecycle as a series of iterative steps. It was one of the first comprehensive attempts to model the software development process. The waterfall model has six stages that generally must be completed in order. Spiral was developed in 1986 by Barry Boehm. Agile was developed in 2001. All right. Of the following, which would be an example of a type two error for a biometric system? Um, all right. I would eliminate delta. I would eliminate delta and bravo because those two are showing that it's doing what it's supposed to do. I think this is Charlie. Yeah, type 2 error when an invalid subject is authenticated. The rate at which this occurs is known as the false acceptance rate. For example, if Josephine, who is not authorized, uses her fingerprint to log in and the system accepts it, this would be considered, excuse me, this would be considered a type 2 error. A type 1 error is a false reject. This occurs when a valid subject is not authenticated. If a valid subject is authenticated, it is not an error. That is what is wanted. Yeah, as I said, that's what it's doing what it's supposed to do. So if an invalid subject is rejected, that is also a good condition and not an error. Um, this too is a wanted condition. All right. When deleting a file is not enough to satisfy an organization's data destruction policy, what best ensures the data cannot be restored, but the media can be reused? Uh, well, we can eliminate delta. I think it's gonna be alpha clearing. Ah, so purging. So what does it say about clearing? So clearing, defined in this SPA 800-88 as the application of logical techniques, sanitize data in all user addressable storage locations for protection against simple, non-invasive data recovery techniques. All right, but I mean, just tell me why. Hmm, okay, but so yeah, so essentially, yeah, if you're using purging, you want to reuse that data um, or that media type, um, you would want to use purging. Of course, if you have no plans on reusing it, you want to clear the data that's on it. But and again, if you have no plans on using it, then I would go with destruction. But yeah, purging allows you to still do that. I'm just trying to figure out why clearing. So clearing resets the device to a factory state. Yeah, I got. I need to look at a better definition for or better reasoning for clearing. But I understand purging. I just want to learn. I just want to know why clearing wasn't it. All right. If anti-malware software looks at the characteristics of code, how it may interact with the system looking for suspicious behavior, what type of detection is most likely being used? If you're looking at behavior, that's going to be heuristic. Heuristic is the only one here that deals with behavior. So heuristic detection, sometimes called behavior detection, analyzes the characteristics and structure of code to detect malware. So if the code has too many negative characteristics, it will be quarantined. All right. Which secure protocol is the latest providing enhanced Wi-Fi security with the inclusion of the Diffie-Hellman key exchange and a secret session key? Ugh. I think that's going to be, yeah, the latest. I think that it's going to be DPPA3. WEP is your weakest one. You should never use that. It's deprecated. Yeah. Yeah, you see WEP uses the RC4 secret key, which today just takes just minutes to crack. So you never want to use that. That's the weakest one there. All right, software programmers should not be the only people to test code because they may have a predetermined view of how the testing results should appear. This principle is classified under which administrative access control? Should not be the only. I think this would be separation of duties. Yeah. Yeah, separation of duties, control measure used to ensure a different person or department performs functionality and integrity testing of internal software. Software should be tested by developers as they are developing their code. Um, and the formal step of testing software is essential to have testing done by people other than the ones who created it. Many testing methodologies, such as code walkthroughs, are performed by developers, not just by the people who wrote the code. It is often easier for another person to detect errors than it is for the person who wrote the code to detect them. All right, an organization is implementing an authentication system uh, for a high risk system where unauthorized access could have serious effects. Which of the following error rates should they be looking to minimize? Um, the false rejection rate. So yeah, so false rejection rate, that's Charlie. False acceptance rate. Really not thinking for a high risk system where unauthorized access. So I think you wanna minimize delta. Um, so I'm just getting my background music going. Yeah, you want to minimize false acceptance rate. Yeah. Biometric authentication systems can produce various types of errors. Yeah, so false positives or type 2 errors. And we had a type 2 question earlier, not too long ago. So the false acceptance rate is calculated as a ratio of false acceptances to valid authentications. False negatives or false rejections or type 1 errors are when a system fails to authenticate a legitimate user. So the ratio of false rejections to valid authentications is the false rejection rate, or FRR. So the CER is the crossover error rate, where those two, where we have the equal error rate is when the FRR equals the FAR. or the false acceptance rate and the false rejection rate. All right, what type of control can verify that a communication pathway is active by periodically or continuously checking it with a signal preventing intruders from circumventing an alarm system or triggering a high availability event? Believe this. I believe this is. I believe this is heartbeat sensor. Yeah. Is Bravo a real term? Okay. Yeah. Keep a live signal is sent to ensure a connection of some type is maintained or not disconnected due to no use. Your heartbeat sensor is used as a communication pathway that tests that tests a target's signal periodically. It provides monitoring for connections to servers or security systems. For instance, if the door lock cable is cut, the test signal will fail, and personnel will be alerted to the issue. Heartbeat sensors are also used to trigger high availability events on servers or network equipment. So, for example, if a server detects that its is no longer active, it will take over and provide a failover. All right. When discussing disaster recovery plans or DRPs, what would a facility with the appropriate space, power, and HVAC systems or heating, ventilation, air conditioning systems without servers or data most likely be called? A facility with the appropriate space, power, but it says without servers. I think this is still going to be a coal site because um, I think with a warm site it would at least have the servers. Um, but this is just telling me that it's just a shell. You just tell me the building, the infrastructure. So if it has the space, the power, you can turn the lights on when you walk in there. Um, yeah, yeah, the proper HVAC, the central air. I mean, that should be the minimum. So, yeah, but there's no servers or data or anything like that. I think this is still a coal site. Yeah. So a warm site would have computers, communication links already in place, ready to be loaded with data. That was a big key there. It says no servers or data, so that's why it eliminated warm site. But the way to describe this is just the empty infrastructure. And yeah, the power and cooling for the building. It's all empty, but um, no computers, servers, or anything like that. So that's why that's a cold site. All right, which of the following is not an access control model? So yeah, discretionary access control. That's gonna be Bravo. Yeah, yeah, discretionary, role based, and rule based. Yeah, those are all three. So user access controls we use like in Active Directory. Um, yeah, it's used in Windows systems to elevate privileges when running a program. Yeah. All right, which of the following describes the primary purpose of the POP3 protocol? And that's used like for mail. Um, uh, so download messages. This, yeah, I don't think it's going to be encrypting. Uh, because you have POP3 and they have IMAP. Um, I think this is. I'm not sure on this one. That was my best guess, honestly. But yeah, POP3, Post Office Protocol version 3, is an email protocol designed to allow an email client to retrieve messages from a mail server and store them locally on the user's device. The protocol primarily supports download and local storage of messages. Which of the following is the best example of simplex communication? So if you have simplex, it's only going one way. You're not getting where you have like duplex, or you have like full duplex. If you're like on a cell phone, where both parties can talk to each other at the same time. One simplex is just one way. Like if you hit like hitting a walkie-talkie, you have to wait for the person to let go before you can respond. Um, actually, all right. So eliminate cell phone. You can eliminate Alpha and Bravo. You could take that out. Law enforcement radio. Actually, car radio. 'Cause I think law enforcement radio is half duplex. Car radio is just one way. There's no way to send anything back out. So I think it's gonna be car radio. Yep. Yeah, car radio is simple, one way. So I correct my description earlier about the walkie-talkie because that's a half. That should be half. Yeah, half duplex. Law enforcement radio. I just say walkie-talkie. It's the same thing. Um, like I said, you hit the receiver, you say what you got to say. Then the other person listening, they can only respond until after you let go of the receiver button, and so that way they can send a message back to you. So that's half duplex, not simplex. Simplex is a car radio where pretty much a broadcast, where you can't send anything back. You can only receive, and that's it. All right, and last one for tonight. Which of the following best describes governance? Process in which senior management directs an organization to meet its objectives. I don't think it's Delta. Any audit that occurs in an organization to ensure compliance with internal policies. I think this is going to be Charlie. Yeah. Yeah, governance is a process in which senior management directs an organization to meet its objectives. Governance must involve oversight to ensure that the goals set by senior management are met. So, when performing security governance, security managers need to keep security objectives in alignment with business objectives. All right, let's see how we did. Whoa, 87. I really put a lot of pressure on myself because I thought I got way more than four wrong. Um, but and maybe that's how it feels that way during the actual exam. Especially I've read on Reddit. I do check Reddit a lot. The CISSP Reddit quite a bit, and folks who passed, they've you know the common theme that I pull from that is a lot of folks they feel like they're failing, but when they get to the end, they get congratulations on their printout that they passed. So I mean, honestly, yeah, I even with doing this, I thought I did much worse. I thought I got more than four wrong, um, but no, I mean, it's definitely good to wanna you do this, you do the practice, you go over what you got wrong, clean up the areas you're unfamiliar with, and use that to improve and get better. And then as you get to a point where you continue to learn, um, you start to see the results, especially when you go to take the actual exam. You should be able to see, uh, get yourself to a passing mark. So, yeah, I'm sorry, just checking some things here. Okay. All right. Yeah, so this was Edge for the correct answer here for not a common type of DLP. Software escrow, I chose code repository. They're close, but not the same. So actually, let me go back. So the reason why they're not the same, because code repository doesn't really concern about, I guess, trying to um, provide any sort of protection or help, or maybe for another company or for future use if something happens. Software escrow does. Like software escrow is what you'd use in case there is a, I guess, an adverse event, and you're able to still protect the code and access it. So the software escrow is the best choice there. The very first method, the software development methodology, yeah, I guessed because I had no clue. Um, and it was waterfall. So waterfall was created in 1970. Spiral was still an old one because I really had it down between those two. It was 1986. I know CMM was fairly was newer. Um, I don't know why they don't put the year for that one. Agile developed 2001. Yeah, I don't know why they don't put the year for CMM. So the ISO 21827 that was released in 2002. And yeah, if you're trying to reuse the media, reuse the media. You want to clear the data, reuse the media. You want to do purging. Um, yeah, of course, destruction is the most secure way, but you won't be able to reuse the media because it's obliterated, it's gone. So, all right, did really well tonight. I thought I did good job, and I'll thank you all if you're able to watch and follow. But please, also too, just let me know how you're doing in your studies. And if you're looking for a community to join, to work with others, please come and join the command line. Um, we're on the Discord. We'll have another session, another CISSP session, again this week on Wednesday. Um, Actually, that might be up in the air. 'Cause maybe doing some traveling, so we'll see. I'll send out a notice, but typically we do have it on Wednesdays, and we'll still do CISSP, but that'll be strictly within the Discord. So again, if you want to join and take advantage of those sessions, just come through. Reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I'll get you squared away with the invite. Also, too, you can go to talawacyber.org, and you can find the Discord invite link on there as well. That's another pathway for you to join and be connected with the community. All right. Well, that's it for tonight. Hope everyone has a good one, and I'll see you next time.